Hello, I just thought I would make some short videos because I can't really do anything else at the moment. I'm still deep in grief and loss and pain of my partner. Not really able to focus on doing anything new, so I thought I'd revisit some things that you haven't really seen that close up and also have a little talk while I'm doing it. I thought I'd first give you some close-up of this rather large painting that I did when I lived in Wiltshire and focus on some bits of it that are, I'm quite proud of them, and you can see the colours. Hopefully you can see the colours because you know the whole situation with the videos getting bleached out, the colours getting bleached out of the videos before you get to see them by my filming process. But if I go in there to this sleeping being's face, you can see how many different shades of, well, there's gold and bronze and purple, deep purple, indigo, all sorts of things in that face. Come out a little bit. Just things I haven't really done before. A lot of my paintings don't get seen by anybody, and I think it's nice to show the bits that I'm proud of. I did make some painting videos sometime last year, I think, but because the comments were switched off, I think they kind of disappeared into oblivion and not many people watched them, because it's made a huge difference having comments switched back on again. There's my white hair, which features in so many of my paintings. Go close and you can see all the, hopefully you can see all the colours that have been used in there. I know this isn't what you would normally expect from me. I'll be doing something carrying on with my wild spirit revamps. I'm doing the everyday enchantment things, readings that I do and those sorts of things, but I'm in just a state of deep grief. And this is a good thing to be focusing on. I hope that it's sort of interesting to look at as well, because you won't have seen these things. Certainly not in this way. I was particularly proud of this branch with the lichen on growing on it. Lots of different colours. For some reason I managed to make it look exceptionally three-dimensional. If I come out, you can see it there. And then I come back in and you can see it actually really does look quite real. You go closer and closer, you lose the definition, but it does, and I'm very proud of this. I think it's a shame that my paintings have just sort of been on my walls and been seen by very few people. So this is just a little opportunity that I was taking so that we could have a bit of a focus on them. The ubiquitous crow. I always have to have a crow in my paintings, and a hare and a deer. Usually, I don't know what my paintings will be like in the future, if there'll ever be any paintings in the future, but that's what they always had in them. And this land was based, the the perspective on this is not good, but the land is very much like the sort of ripply earth that you find in areas of Wiltshire, this on the downs, and it's a kind of effect that you get there which I find incredibly beautiful. So that's why it looks like that, and there are all these colours that you don't see. There's a sort of mauve, and there's lots of greens that you would expect to see in the land, and there's a sort of slate blue, and these here are the shadows of some of the I'm not entirely sure. I used to know, I had a very good knowledge of what the seed-headed plants that grew by the sides of the verges were called, but unfortunately my brain, especially at the moment when I have grief brain, I can't remember the names of them, but I would put a seed head up against a white background, and I would look at the shadows they created, and then I'd try and paint them, or I would put them up against the canvas, create a shadow and try and paint the shadow. So it made a nice effect of depth then going back. And I learnt how to do that on another painting I'm going to show you in a minute. And you can see that again over on this side. So you get the seed head and then you get the shadows in a sort of faded sepia tone going backwards. And there is a leaping deer going into the painting, drawing your eye into the painting. I've got very little room here, so I'm hoping I'm not going to topple backwards. I can't get the whole of this painting in because it's blooming huge, and there are some that are actually bigger than this, so I'm just doing it in segments. I will take you up to Mr. Buzzard up here. I remember days and days and days of being crouched on the floor because I can't sit, and I wasn't standing to paint at that point, but I was crouched on the floor trying to get the perspective and the feathering of this buzzard right. And I can actually remember just eating my dinner and going back to it and working almost hard in the dark because I had to get it right. It was a kind of obsessive thing, and in the end I wasn't entirely pleased with it, but it was as good as it could be, and I quite like the fact that it looks like it's coming out at you and then disappearing away. I was playing with the perspective there. I'll just come back to some nice little seed heads down here as well. Really hoping this isn't going to get too bleached out. If I'm sounding relatively normal, that's because I'm doing this for you and not focusing on the terrible pain that I have in my heart at the present time from my grief. This helps to do something like this. Anyway, that's the majority of this painting covered. Let's look at this one, which you've probably seen. I'll come into it. I'm actually filming this as the light is going because it's easier, and also it's creating a nice effect because this is meant to be, as so many of my pieces are, it's meant to be a kind of twilight piece, and for some reason the light coming through the back of it is really giving it that effect. You can see the sun is going down. On this painting, the ubiquitous crows up there and the rose bay willow herb seed head, which I just found I just love the sculptural qualities of seed heads. And this was the first time I'd really explored that, and I was very, very, very pleased with it. And I love that when you look at that and you can really tell that the twilight, the dusk is coming, and that, I hope you can see that when you're looking at it. I can see it here, but I don't know how your colours are going to come out when it's on the screen. And then we have the hair. One of the few people that's actually seen this painting said that they love how the hair is coming. Let's move this one a minute. The hair is actually coming right forward. Feet are actually off the edge of the canvas. It's really present at the front of the canvas, and I'll just go in so you can see. This painting actually was in an exhibition, so more people have seen this. But I don't know what they thought of it, but this was an exhibition in Wiltshire at one point. I think it got a commendation, and it was the first painting where I was experimenting with, like I was talking about just previously, the shadows of things, because when I was working on this I was getting shadows coming through, and I thought, well, why not incorporate them? So if you look at the back of this here, you'll see the shadows in the background, kind of a sepia olive green shadowing of the other plants in the background. Up there you can see it, which gives a really interesting effect, and I'd like to, in future, if I ever paint again. Very hard to imagine doing anything ever again at the moment, because it's just so hard to be thinking of a future without my soul love in it. So yeah, if I do, I would like to experiment with that shadowing effect again. And I'd also like to paint the rose bay willow herb again, because it's just such an incredibly interesting plant. And then you've got your deer running away, one of my motifs. I don't know whether if I start painting again, I will not have these motifs anymore, but I would still like to explore some of the things that I found interesting to do, like the seed heads and the shadowing, and also playing with light and the effects of the atmospheric effects of that. So I think you can really see, if I bring it back, you can see that this, you can tell what time of day it is, the fading light. And this was called I Love You, But It's Time to Leave. And I painted this around the time that I knew that I was going to have to leave Wiltshire, because both of my parents were very, very ill, and I was the only child, and I needed to move up to where they were and leave my Wiltshire behind, which is what I did, and I've ended up stuck here for now, for quite a long now actually. And so that's why it's called that, I Love You, But It's Time to Leave. So it's kind of my little goodbye to my favourite times in that landscape, which was always dusk, twilight, when the barn owls would come out, because they would do that quite early. And when they did, they would often get hassled by the naughty crows, which were terribly naughty with the buzzards as well. How many times have I seen buzzards being hassled by crows? Crows are just so incredibly naughty, but also very wonderful. Right, we've been at this for 11 minutes, so I shall just cover one more painting and then I shall do another video about another two. Really, I wanted to talk about the idea I had for another book. Now, another book is a very difficult thing because of everything I've just talked about. I can't really imagine ever doing anything again, but also because writing is incredibly difficult. Typing, writing, whatever. And I have tried all ways of getting around this, including voice recognition software and changing what I type on and how I blah blah blah. Whichever way I look at it, writing, typing, because it has to be typed. Another book, nobody will accept a handwritten manuscript, and I can't write by hand anyway. Blah. Anyway, so yes, it would have to be typed, and it would take an incredibly long time. But I have another idea for a book, which would be called something along the lines of, I don't think whether now I'm wondering if I give the name of the book away. No, maybe I shouldn't. Anyway, it's about people who are on the edge. I don't mean that on the edge of collapse or on the edge of disaster. I mean it's for us who are genuinely walkers on the edge, who are the misfit mystics, the natural, the wild spirited people who find life rather a challenge. It's not going to be a book focusing on the difficulties, but rather on the beauty that we can find as that type of person. And I really, really wanted to write this book for other people, lots of solitary people who find life very hard because they are this edge-walking, misfit, mystic person. And I really hope that I would get a chance to do that, if not in this existence, then perhaps in another one. Because I think there are things that need to be said to people like me and maybe you. But that's for another time. Okay, let's look at this final piece, which you will probably remember because I spent so long trying to get it right. I made videos about trying to get it right. I made a complete cock-up. It was never meant to look like this, but if I just put it up there, would that make any difference? Yeah, looking at it now, it's not what it was meant to be, but the colours are so beautiful. I don't really like these sort of colours. They're not mine. I like twilight. I've said this so many times, twilight, dusky colours. I like this kind of earthy, twilighty, stormy almost, you know. That's my kind of thing, not kind of rainbow colours, but this came out as it did. And since I've made the video about it, I found a way of going over it which made it even more luminous. And I didn't manage to wreck it, which was quite a miraculous thing. I thought if I go over this, I'm going to really screw it up. But I didn't. I actually managed to make it look really vibrant. I can tell you how I did that if you would like to know. What I did was I got pearlescent ink. Now, I made videos about using pearlescent ink because pearlescent ink is an absolute sod. Sorry, but it is to use because it doesn't mix with anything else and it makes everything else disappear away from it, and you can't varnish it because it vanishes. I didn't like it at all, but if you leave it long enough, it separates itself out, and what comes out of the top is a thin ink, which is so vibrant. It separates itself out from the pearl and becomes like this absolutely vibrant coloured thing that if you put it over something else, i.e. as I've done here, look at that, magenta, orange, violet. It's fantastic, but you have to leave it literally for months before you get this separated effect, and then you can paint it over something else, and my goodness, I highly recommend it. Look at that gold there. This really made this picture, this painting, more than it was, because what I wanted it to be getting fainter and fainter as it goes into the light, with the pale golds and the pale colours swirling into the light. And because I've managed to paint the darker colours around the edges now, you really get much more of that effect of moving into, because the edges are so bold that you feel much more like you're swirling into a pale golden aurored light. There are such lovely sheens of colours in here. It's such a shame I can't pick this up. If this video picks it up, I shall be so grateful. I really will. So that's everybody going home into the light, all the creatures, as we all do in the end, all of us going back into the light, which is very sort of poignant for me at the moment. We're all going home, sort of being pulled into that centre. But I was never happy with this, mainly because it had been such a struggle, but it never looked like I wanted it to look originally. But now I think with the addition of the bolder colours, it has more to it. It's not so flat with a white dot in the middle. It actually does feel like you're moving into something that is glowing and luminous, whatever. Very, very nice, I think. Anyway, not my taste of colours though. Okay, that was 17 minutes of me just twiddling on about paintings, which has been good for me to do because I'm focusing on something that I love rather than something that is hurting me, hurting my heart. So I feel like I've done something useful, and hopefully you will have got something out of it and it's not just been a self-indulgent exercise. Really don't like the idea of just doing things as kind of trumpet blowing self-indulgence. I like the idea of doing something that gives you something that you haven't seen before, or that would inspire you to do something. And I think what I would say out of this is that shadowing, in all respects, using that technique could be interesting for any of you who are looking to try something different. There's a kind of a bronze shadowing there on that. And okay, I'll leave it there I think, and I'll leave you with her as she sleeps with the seeds and the hair. I wish I could be her at the moment and just go to ground like a fox and just sleep the pain away, but I can't, so I will make another video instead. I am very, very grateful for you joining me. Lots of love. Stay free and know that I appreciate you very much. Bye.